If you have an interest in horses and love learning more about horses, the horse industry, teaching, or even managing your own horse business, then you're in the right place. We would love you to join us on our mission, which is to improve the lives of horses around the world through the education of riders, handlers, and trainers. So get comfortable, listen in, and enjoy.
This is another of our popular Listener's Choice interviews, which we're playing over the weekend. We've chosen the most popular interviews for you to select the Listener's Choice winner. If you're not sure how the Listener's Choice competition works, have a look at horsechats.com/choice for the rules and the leaderboard. Our guest today is Claire Wickins. Claire's a Grand Prix competitor, trainer and coach, and she's also had a successful show career. She breeds warm bloods, and the main thing we'd like to talk to her today after we've introduced her is she's using cross-training to keep her dressage horses effortlessly beautiful. How are you today, Claire?
Very well, thanks.
Great. Claire, a favourite quote. Have you got one for us today just to get you going and introduce you?
I always say to my clients to ride forward and that the impulsion is the desire to move forward, and that's the most important. If the horse is going forward and it's in front of your leg, then you can fix everything.
Okay. I think that's quite good for someone just starting off in dressage right through to the Grand Prix riders.
Yeah, absolutely.
Claire, tell us a bit about your first memories with horses. Do you remember the first time you saw a horse, rode a horse, at any of those early memories?
I grew up in Hong Kong and I started riding at the age of 3.
Yep.
My mother rode for pleasure and she enjoyed it, but it was just part of her life, and I was insanely passionate about it, and my family had no idea where it came from. And, I started riding at the Hong Kong Jockey Club at 3 years of age, and then I used to ride a pony called Parsley, and we had an English instructor, and she was very strict and did all sorts of things that not allowed today, like tied her elbows back, tied her ponytails to her belt, tied her feet to the stirrups. We used to ride without stirrups, without reins. We used to jump like that. I rode in a saddle pad, which I think is really important because it teaches as a young rider to feel the horse. So many kids ride in a big saddle and they can't actually feel the horse. So it was almost like a jockey's pad. It was a felt pad with a tiny bit of thin, bit like calfskin leather. And I rode in that, but we had to behave. We had to follow the leader. In Wickins, it was very regimented. We had to have 2 horses' lengths. And, you learned.
But riding like that, it's quite good just to keep you aware. It creates discipline, but it creates that self-discipline, doesn't it? So you're always aware and you're becoming safe. You're always aware of that 2 horses distance, and you're always aware of other riders.
Yeah, yep.
Yeah, so from there, that's a big jump then to having a career with horses, and you're very heavily involved now with your own horses and started competing and everything else. What made you have a career with horses? Was it one decision, or was it because as a 3-year-old you're insanely passionate and that was always going to be the case?
No, I always thought that I would do something else and then have horses on the side.
Yep.
And I'd badgered my parents for a horse for years and years, and we moved back to Australia when I was 7. I didn't get a horse till I was 12. And then I wanted to leave school at year 10 and, be more invested in riding. Mm-hmm. And my father said, no, you have to, finish year 12. And we sort of had an agreement that if I finished year 12, I could have a year off before university and go overseas and ride overseas. And he was an accountant and he wanted me to do a Bachelor of Business. So I went into Bachelor of Business and I hated it, just hated it. And I was riding and teaching and coaching and training on the side. And then, I did half the degree and I dropped out, as business was going well. And, it just sort of progressed from there.
I thought you were going to tell me you didn't actually go to uni, and you wouldn't be the first guest that I've had here that said, I took 12 months off, and then just after that 12 months I never went back. Yeah.
Sometimes I wish I'd finished it and had 2 or 3 horses because it's a very enjoyable life, but it's hard. It's a hard slog.
Sure.
Like everybody thinks, we have the best, but I have to put the client's horses first. So often mine get left,
So what about the people who want to start in the horse career? What sort of core skills or character traits do you think that they need to have? They're going to start off, they say, right, well, I want to work with horses, have a career with horses. I mean, if you were going to hire someone or employ someone or recommend someone, what sort of core skills or character traits would they need?
They've got to be willing to learn and be open-minded.
Mm-hmm.
I was only talking to somebody yesterday that I can learn from a show jumper or a carriage driver or a Western pleasure rider. I can learn from a horseman.
Yep.
Do you know what I mean? It doesn't have to be a dressage diva. I can learn from the farrier.
Yep.
I can learn from the chiropractor. Your mind's got to be open and it's got to absorb all that information and store. And you might think today that's not relevant, but 4 years down the track you might think, yes, I remember he said this. You've got to surround yourself by a great network of people. That's taken me a lifetime to get, like farriers and chiropractors and vets and that you have a huge trust with them and you both know where you stand. I think now there's a lot of really good courses people could do. I sort of wish that I saw on Facebook the other day there was a racehorse course saying, we want you, we'll train you, we'll give you a certificate, we'll find you a job. I think that's great. I know Marcus do a great course down in Melbourne, and I think that there's a lot of TAFE courses. I think that's a good backup to have.
And I was going to say, and of course at Osmond Online Horse College.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Now, it's a lot broader though, isn't it? Do you see the horse industry opening up a lot more than it used to be? The fact that there's more different types of careers in the horse industry. It's not just go and work as a groom and that's pretty much, the end of your career. But it's a lot broader now.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, you could work for IRT,
Yeah, exactly.
With horses, that would be a brilliant job, something like that.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
I wonder though, is it like the airlines where the people go out and they travel, but they don't actually get off and see the country? You've still got to want to do the travel, haven't you? I mean, if you work there, and for people that don't know, that'd be International Racehorse Transport. That's what you mean, isn't it?
Yeah.
That they actually go out, travel with the horses, but then go out with the horses to the new homes and to meet and network with people from different countries. It would be good. And, it is. There's a lot of different careers. Yeah.
Yes, there are.
What do you think's the best thing about working in the horse industry?
I don't know why, I just find it easier working with animals than people.
Yep.
I don't know, I feel like I can communicate better with them.
Mm-hmm.
They become my friend. It's really hard for me, like breeding. It's my business.
Yep.
It's really hard. They're my children. To me, I don't have children and they're my babies and I adore them. And when I sell them, like when I sold Worldwide and Rolex, I was in tears. When I sold Rolex, I was hysterical for months and months and months. It was, a huge part of my life.
Mm-hmm.
So I enjoy, that camaraderie, that friendship, that I have one mare now that's super, super talented, but she's a complete diva. I often call her Mariah Carey. and sometimes I just hold her and I just say, no, this is not going to happen. And I don't know, she must speak English. She goes, all right. And she's addicted to licorice all sorts. And she gets bribed. It's like on a good day she has licorice afterwards, and on a brilliant day she gets licorice all sorts. And she knows when the all sorts are in a cupboard, and she knows when that cupboard opens. She's just like piaffing in the tie-up. She just gets so excited.
Yeah.
So, and it's nice if you can. I enjoy working with mares and stallions, which I know a lot of riders find difficult because it does take longer.
Sure.
But if you get it right with them, they give their all, If you can get a relationship that's really solid, that you both understand, then that's what I enjoy, getting that connection.
I can't see, we're not on video, but I think when I said the last question, what's the best thing about working with horses? I think your eyes glazed over because you just went into this so much, and just it was almost like a different tone in your voice when you started talking about the best thing working with horses. Yeah. Now, the next thing, just tell us about someone or a couple of people who've influenced you and helped you in your career, because you actually went overseas, you said, when you finished school, or people who've helped you in Australia. Who do you think has been influential in helping you, even the way you ride or career decisions or anything like that?
Well, I was very lucky that my parents paid for a lot of lessons when I was younger, and then I started working from 14, and from then I paid for myself, and I had a lot of training with. I lived on the same road as the Dirks, and Clemens helped me.
Yep.
And he was absolutely great, and I used to go down there every holidays and every weekend, and just help and absorb and learn and watch, and and in exchange I'd have a lesson when I helped out. So Clemens was super, and then I also trained with Matthew Dowsley.
Yep. And
same sort of principles, just very correct, solid, basic foundations. When I was at Pony Club, they brought out a German instructor, Swiss instructor actually, but he was working and living in Germany, Christian Plager. And at lunchtime he used to do some talks, and I used to sit there with my notebook and write down every word. I was just captivated.
Yep.
And I actually, when I went to Europe, I spent some time with him. And then my family's from England, and we used to go and see Ferdy Alberg. I used to have some lessons with Ferdy. And I also did some training on 2 occasions with Ferdy, and I loved Ferdy. I had like a school horse when I was there, and he would say shoulder in. And we would do, like, the horse was so patient with me. He'd just say shoulder in circle, shoulder in medium trot, shoulder in half pass, shoulder in medium trot, shoulder in a slower trot. Like, now I have too much bend, now I have too much angle, and then how to correct it.
Yeah.
And then we did that with every single movement. And that was invaluable.
Yep.
Do you know what I mean? And I think that's what... There aren't many decent school horses in Australia, and when I had Rolex and Worldwide at the end of their career, I tried to offer lessons, and people don't really want to pay for that. I don't know.
They probably didn't understand the value. It's the value.
They didn't understand, because it's just brilliant to be able to sit on something that if you don't have the perfect timing, the flying change will be late. And that's what... It's very hard as a rider to be learning as your horse is learning. So it's a gift almost, do you know what I mean, to be able to sit on a schoolmaster and learn those invaluable lessons. Do you mean in 10 minutes you can learn what might take you 6 months?
I think that's like you were saying, people don't, it's the cost. But I think if you look at the cost and look at the value and you compare, you learn in 10 minutes what you could learn in 6 months, then that becomes value.
Yeah.
That even though the cost is, the initial cost is high. I can understand what you mean.
Yeah.
Okay. No, that's really good. I was going to say next about horses who've influenced you, and you've talked about Worldwide and Rolex. Is there anyone else you'd like to talk about, or you'd like to talk about them a little bit more?
Yeah. I bought a horse when I was 21 called HRH, and he was brilliant, genius, also a bit of a lunatic.
Yeah.
And that he taught me a lot. Do you know what I mean? And he got the highest score at CDI for numerous years. He got in, I think it was 2000, he got 72.8%.
Yeah.
And it was and he got numerous 9s from the international judges. And he taught me patience and understanding. Yeah. And who knows whether they can't talk to us, whether that he was in pain or there was just a screw a bit loose.
Yep.
But he'd have I once went to nationals and he came last in the what was the now the President George Challenge. It was the Samsung Cup, and there was a flag in the corner, and he just absolutely refused to turn right and go in that corner.
Mm-hmm.
And then 40 minutes later, I had to do my freestyle, and I changed my freestyle as I went. Like I had a set freestyle, but I went, I'm not turning right. So I went in and was trying to calculate as I was going through. I've done a left half pass, I've done a right half pass, I've done this extended trot. Anyway, an hour later, he won the freestyle. You know, and it was a very tumultuous relationship, that one.
Yes.
But it made me feel the brilliance and the lightness, and like he just did the most amazing flying changes, you know, to feel the horse sail underneath you. And then also the disappointment of failing and not being able to achieve just the simple transition. And I suppose from him, I learnt that it's taken me a long time to learn what horse fits me. Mm-hmm. And I try to say that to my clients and the riders. Think of the personality of your horse and think of the personality of you, and try and work out at an early stage, don't take as long as I did, what suits you.
Yes.
So, I mean, if you're a bit excitable, you actually need a quieter horse. Mm-hmm. Otherwise, if you're on a hot horse, you both need a bit of yoga, then
yes.
You need to just relax before you get on. And for me, I've worked out that temperament is so important. You battle with, for me, a lesser horse, mm-hmm. a less talented athletic horse that will allow you to imprint on them.
Okay.
And, you know, manage them and say, give me a bit more. Do you know what I mean? Maybe build that communication that they'll let you into their heart and soul, and you say, come on, and they want to please you.
Yes.
And so that's where I went with Rolex and Worldwide, is I had the temperament.
Yes.
And that's what Worldwide has added to my breeding program, and I want to ensure that continues, is a really rideable temperament. And his son, Wicked, who's my stallion now, when he had the stallion classification, he got 10 for rideability. Mm. And the German classifier said to me, do you realise I have never given a 10 to a stallion anywhere in the world? He said, I've given a 10 to a mare. He said, I've never given a 10 in Australia, and I have never given a 10 to a stallion. But he thought, Wicked was 3, and I took him, he's very quiet, and I thought he'd be a bit dull here. So I took him to somebody else's arena, and I warmed him up for 3 minutes. And I said, okay, we're ready. And he said, are you serious? It's like he saw me warm up, and I said, yeah, he's good. He's good to go. And he just said, everything you asked, the horse did. The horse was happy, it was lovely, it was soft, it was loose, you know. But, you know, you said go forward, come up, drop down, flex. And he said, I gave you a 9, and I crossed it out, and I made it 10. I thought, what more could you ask for a 3-year-old? Stallion in surroundings it's not used to being in.
Yep.
And so for me, that's absolutely imperative to have into my breeding.
Yep.
And the other thing, Worldwide had a liquidity of movement. He might not have had huge athletic movement, but he had a softness and a lightness and an ease of going. And that also creates a soundness. He was still sound at 23, and I presume he's still sound today. And Rolex is still sound at 17.
Yeah.
If they go with a lack of tension, then they're not causing concussion and they're not wearing a particular joint. And touch wood, I've been very lucky to have very sound horses.
Yep.
So, you know, for me, it's got to be temperament and a softness of movement. And now in the breeding, I'm trying to add like a little bit more suspension, a bit more lift. And hopefully you'll all see in the years to come that hopefully I can manage that.
Just talking about soundness as well, the arena that you use, what arena are you using and are you working your horses on? Because you do cross-train them, but tell us a bit about the surface that they're working on as well.
I ride in a very simple arena, and I've ridden in some really brilliant arenas that other people have, but mine's just double wash stand.
Okay.
And a lot of riders come and they say, oh, it's really heavy. But for me, I prefer it to be thicker and heavier, I don't want them to hit the subsurface,
Yes.
the base. I sometimes find when I compete that there's not enough surface. And if, my paddocks are sandy, which is not so good for the horse's gut, but it's brilliant for their legs.
Yep.
They're strong. It's like if you and I go for a weekend holiday on the beach, our legs will ache at the end of the day because we've ploughed through the sand. But my horses are strong, and touch wood again, I've never had a ligament or tendon problem because they're really strong from that. But there's not much concussion. So before I go to a competition where there's a trot up, I will trot my horses up and down the driveway each day. Like I ride them from the arena to the gate, so they get used to a bit of concussion because they're not actually, they're not used to that. But then I'll prepare them for that. But I think for soundness, it's a whole combination. It's about warming up. It's about not overfeeding the horses.
Mm-hmm.
I leave my horses out in the paddock, so they're not stable. They might not look quite as pretty as some other horses, but I think that helps the soundness, that they're always moving, their lymphatic system's always going, and to bandage them well. I think, a really supportive bandage is really helpful.
Yes. Yeah, and I like the way that you said about the soundness being not just, it's great to breed horses that are sound, but, you've talked about also the holistic nature of keeping horses sound, the weight that they're carrying and the comparing and the preparation for the competitions and things, yeah.
Well, I think a lot of dressage riders might forget that the horse is an athlete and they want them to look like a show hack. And we ask so much more than they do of a show hack.
Yes.
Do you know what I mean? The show hack is a beauty thing, and yes, they have to perform, but it's not as enduring and taxing on the horse as a dressage horse. And to me, if they're a little bit light on, they've got to be a bit like a thoroughbred or an eventer. They've got to be strong and fit. And why do we like our horses plump, but we're supposed to look like a waif? Like, to me, that's a bit ridiculous. Yeah, like that they can be well covered, but they have to be fit. There has to be a lot of top line, and they've got to be strong and cardio fit as well. So that's partly why I do the cross training, is to get them cardio, like to ride. I remember the first time I rode the Grand Prix Special, I got to the walk and I thought, thank God, I need an oxygen tank. Like the rider has to be fit as well,
Yes.
And now if I ride the Special, it's easy. And I was a lot younger then when I rode the Special for the first time. But I thought, crikey, it's hard work. Well, if it's hard work for us, then it needs to be hard work for them. And I often have lessons with Stefan Wolf when he's over, and he was saying, we were preparing in the lesson for young horse class, and he said, Claire, at the end of the test, you have to be heaving. He said, that's how hard I want you to work.
Yep.
He said, maybe not in the warm-up, but in the test, you have to get every stride out of that horse. And you have to both come out absolutely panting. So, they need to be an athlete.
Yes. Just going back to your horses and horses who've influenced you, what do you think your proudest moment's been?
I think the proudest moment is at the Paralympics in 2012 when Joanne Formosa won the gold medal on worldwide. I didn't actually think I would ever, feel that emotion with someone else on. He was my ex-horse then.
Yeah.
But, I'd had him for 6 years and he'd been a big part of my life, and she'd only had him 7-9 months before that success, and it was just extraordinary. It was the highest adrenaline, and it was like, he is an exceptional horse, and it was an absolutely amazing roller coaster ride. To actually, I was really glad we went and saw that. It was fabulous. Yeah.
Okay, now thinking about where you are now, because you're breeding numerous horses, what do you think has been your biggest challenge to get the horses that you want? I know you've bred some, but do you find them? Do you is it potluck? How many horses do you look at to get the breeding program that you want, to find the horses that you want and to have the horses to train that you want? What's the biggest challenge there?
I think I've been very lucky to have Worldwide as the foundation stallion for Tennyson Stud. I've had lots of opportunity in my life to breed, and I've always said, no, I don't want to do that. And then I thought Worldwide to actually make money on him and lost money on him, but that happens. And he was a stallion, and because he was a stallion, I started breeding. So I sort of fell into breeding.
Okay.
And then I chose a few mares, and somehow each generation I've managed to improve on them. And I don't know what I put that down to. It's been, I've just said, this horse has this. I want to make sure I want to keep that, but I would like to add that, and it seems to be working. And now I have a super colt, a 3-year-old Szechuan colt, which is very flash. So we have 4 embryo transfers expected this year. So that will be really exciting what he produces over the Worldwide mares. So, yeah, I'm really excited to see what I wanted to stand him at stud last year, but I broke my arm and it was impossible. I couldn't drive and handle him. And so I thought, well, at least I'll have some foals on the ground so that when I stand him at stud this year, people can come and have a look and say, and I've got the mares here, they can say, okay, well, they're riding mares. That's why we took an embryo from them. They can say that mare's produced this, this mare's produced that, and that's why I've gone into the embryo transfers. Was when I had 4 or 5 mares, and you felt like each year the mare was costing you money to feed and the farrier and worm and stuff. So you felt like the mare had to produce something for you. Yeah. And with the embryos, I can say, I've got too many horses this year and not do it, or I'm going to sell that mare next year, so I would like to take as many embryos as I can, or that mare's producing phenomenal,
Yes.
So I have a mare who's lovely, but the foal she produces is exceptional, So then I now have her and her daughter and her granddaughter. So they're all breeding for me.
Okay.
And, so I'm finding that line's really, really working. So I will take more embryos from them than maybe some of the other mares.
Now, just talking about your cross-training, how did you start cross-training? Let's talk about the benefits you've found in particular about the cross-training.
HRH, as I said before, is a little bit outside the square. Yep. And you couldn't repeat anything twice with him. The training was very difficult because you did one shoulder in and one half pass. And if it wasn't right, you couldn't go back and say, let's do it again with a bit more bend or a bit more forward. So I used to also do a bit of training with Ollie Clatter, and he's obviously a jumper, and he said one day, HH, when I first started each day, would often jack up, and he'd say, right, forward feet gallop. I said, he's insane, I'm going to get killed. But then, and I find with I'm training a lot of young horses now, and I say to people, make it fun, make it a game. It's kindergarten for them. Do you mean they're not sitting here at university? Don't get them stale from the beginning. Say, come on, let's go forward. How about we go sideways? Don't make it so regimented. And like the horses that don't have a brilliant walk, I don't walk them in the arena. I'm lucky I'm on a 25-acre property. So then I walk down around the laneways of the paddock, or I walk up to the front gate, and I've got a little pine forest. I walk around the pine forest, and then I come back, I do another 10 minutes, and then I walk up to the house. But it teaches them, when they're out of the arena, they walk forward. They're looking around, they've got natural impulsion. And then it's also good to say, and now we go back and now we do a bit more.
Yes.
Because that's what happens in a competition. You warm up and then you go to the gear check and then you've got to go again. And in the past, I've had horses that go, no, I'm done. But now mine know they might leave the arena 3 times in a session and go back.
Yeah.
And I'd like to move in the near future, and I would like to put a riding paddock next to the arena. So if you say the horse medium canter, like go forward and it doesn't, it's just you can't get it in front of your leg. You say, rightio, out in the 2-acre paddock and let's have a gallop.
Yep.
Or let's go over a jump. Like give an opportunity to get them forward and truly in front of your leg, and that they actually enjoy it. And there's so much benefit of riding on a hill and on level ground. So I had in my mind I was going to have this perfectly level riding paddock, and I was riding on my neighbour's 20 acres, and it's just very gently undulating. And it was really interesting. My stallion struggled going downhill, and a mare that's really talented and got huge extended trot, she actually found it really difficult going uphill. And it made me as a rider really sit upright, because
Yes.
I figured I'm going to somersault over the head if I'm not careful. Do you know what I mean? I remember I rode 4 out in the paddock one day, and that night I couldn't sit down. Like my thighs were killing me because it just sat differently. But you see the weaknesses and that you might not see in an arena when you're out.
Mm.
You know, some horses aren't as concentrated, and that'll be the same in a competition. Yeah, so then you have to work on some relaxation techniques and getting them a bit switched on. And, you know, some horses, like I said, aren't so strong down, and some aren't so strong up, and some find the smaller, tighter work harder, and some actually don't close up when they see an open space. They actually get intimidated by it. Mm-hmm. So, yeah. And working over cavaletti, and I'm not a jumper, but, you know, small jumps or logs or, you know, giving them a bit of fun. And for Allegro, they ride out, you know. Carl and Charlotte are very good at all that.
Yeah. That's the next thing I was going to say is, you know, just in your schedule, because you're even saying that within your arena work, you say, right, I'm going to ride out and then go back into the arena and then go out and then back in. As a percentage, you know, for training your horses, and it might vary from your young horses to your older, I don't know, what percentage would you ride out of the arena and what percentage would you be in the arena?
Probably only 30% out, but that's at my next place. I want to set it up that I have like a riding track around the paddocks, and I have a big open, like just a big paddock that I might put the broodmares in for 2 weeks, you know, to eat down, but then I can move the horses and set up some cavaletti poles and ride in a big open space, because especially for the young ones, they don't need a corner every 60 or 20 metres, you know. And HRH, I had huge problems, even though he did beautiful changes. It took 2 years to get a flying change. Okay. And then I had huge problems with tempi changes. And the only way I got them is I was living still at home at Box Hill, and there was a 10-acre paddock. And I rode him around the edge of the paddock, and I said 4-time changes. Okay. And I did 500 of them. Yep. Till I got 4 of them, right? Mm-hmm. But I never would have got them across the diagonal, ever with that horse. Yep. But I just went 4-time changes till we get them, 3-time changes till we get them. Do you know what I mean? And I would like to train a lot more out. I just don't really have the setup here. But, yeah, that's what I want in future, that I have a really good setup that you can train half pass and extension. And, I mean, like I was saying, that a horse walks forward, well, it will passage forward. It will extend better, you know, if it's got a big space to do it. And I remember Cal and Lieutenant said it's very good to passage downhill. Okay. It makes the horse really sit behind and carry. Yep. Yeah. And the chiropractors told me to rein back uphill with some horses to help strengthen their loins. You know, there's so many exercises you can do. And he's even said with some horses a little weak on one side to rein back like sideways, you know, on their weak side, higher up the hill. Then, yeah.
I think that's probably a couple of good tips there that you've just given, you know, to do with different uses of cross-training and cross-training, just the use of the heels, the galloping, you know, even the jumping or just the cavaletti and just going out.
Yeah. And I've even taken my horses to places and free jump them. Dressage horses that will never need to jump. Mm-hmm. But just it's really good gymnastic exercise. It teaches them to stretch their neck and let go of their back. Yep. And then with some horses, I often pay a rider to jump them, to take them to jump club. I bred a horse that won Young Event Horse of the Year.
Okay.
Because he didn't like to collect and he actually liked to really go forward. And I thought, well, and he'll be fine to collect later, but as a young horse, he wanted to go.
Yep.
And I saw that talent as soon as I sat on him. And, I can't remember, it was 4 or 5, but he won Young Event Horse.
Oh, good.
So,
Claire, have you got a book or, you might have a couple of books that you'd recommend to our listeners, just something that's going to complement their training?
I've always really enjoyed The Principles of Riding, which is a German handbook.
Probably one of our most popular books, yep.
Yeah, and when I was younger, it's probably quite old-fashioned book now, it was Franz Maringer's book, Horses Are Made to Be Horses.
And that would probably be our second most popular book, yep.
And then I have on my coffee table Harry Bolt's book, The Dressage Horse.
Yes.
Yeah, and that's a really great book too.
And remember, you can find all the books recommended by our guests at horsechats.com/books. You can have a look at the guest page for the individual book they recommended, or just look at the recommended books by order of popularity at horsechats.com/books. So, Claire, what are you looking forward to now?
For the future with HB Sanaka, who is my Szechuan colt. I probably have the best horses I've ever had in my lifetime. I've got way too many horses and I'd like to get down to 5 of my own. And most professional riders don't even own their own horses. But I really enjoy it. Like, for me, I want to work, I want to breed to produce a horse that I couldn't afford to buy.
Yep.
And it gives you added pleasure to think that you've bred that horse on top of training it. So I love helping my clients and training other people's horses and coaching. I get a lot of joy out of that. But yes, I have the best group of horses I've ever had. So the future's really exciting with that. I'm looking forward to moving in next year. I'd like to move to Southern Highlands. It's a great network of people down there. And for me, a better climate.
Mm-hmm. And that's where you set up your extra riding area next to your dressage arena.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, it's a little bit of a fresh start, and just to get a little bit more. I have to say I did lose a little bit of the passion for it a while, and now I'm just trying to reinvent it. And it's great cross training the horses, but I actually have to, I have to bring the joy back in it for me.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to work on a life balance. And not all horses, so that when I do my horses, it's an absolute joy again.
Yep.
Because otherwise it can become tedious and hard work and draining.
Sure.
Yeah. So I want to bring that back in. And I've been unfortunate. I've had a whole lot of injuries. So I want to get healthy and fit. I'm doing a lot of Pilates now, and I'm really enjoying that. And that's totally changing my strength and body shape. Yeah, so I'm getting older. I need to concentrate and get the best I can out of, my riding time that I have left.
I think something you said about, you were just getting a bit stale. I think people have got to remember why they wanted to work with horses. What is the best thing? And thinking back to that conversation we had earlier where I said, I think your eyes just glazed over. I think, yes, you're certainly enjoying it at the moment.
Yes, absolutely.
All right. Now, just in a few sentences, would you be able to summarise your philosophy with horses?
I believe that the horse needs to be happy and content, and there has to be a connection and a communication between the horse and rider, that the horse has a willingness to learn and to give and to create as much as it possibly can.
Yep.
And as a rider, we have to understand the horse's limitations and generally not ask more than it can give. Some are more talented in different areas. And I like the horse to be elastic and seamless and supple and just a lightness and ease of going.
Yep.
That's really important to me, that there's a softness and a willingness. That's what I'm really passionate about.
Okay. All right. And Claire, how can people contact you? What's the best way?
I have a Facebook page, Claire Wickins, and a business page, Tennis and Stud. I have just started an Instagram account. I'm currently getting my website redone, so that'll be clairewickins.com.au.
Okay, and those details will be on horsechats.com/Claire Wickins, or you can go to horsechats.com and search for Claire. So, Claire, if you think of any others, just let us know and we'll put all those details on that page. So if people want to contact you, there'll be a couple of different ways they can get through to you.
Okay, thanks very much.
That's okay. Claire, there was lots of tips there, lots of reasons to go out and cross-train horses. I think you're getting lots of joy out of having your horses, tips there for breeding as well. I think there was just lots of tips right through the whole conversation that we had. So I'd like to say thank you very much for your time today, and we'd love to see you again sometime soon.
Yeah, thank you. I really enjoyed it.
Good. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Remember that our comments and instructions are general in nature and do not take into consideration your individual horses or your individual ability and circumstances. If you enjoyed this podcast, then please leave your comment below.